Alrighty, Andy McCarthy, I told you so. Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler. I have recoiled to my home vehicle office because there's a little bit too much noise in the house. A little update in the Trump New York case in which he was supposed to be sentenced on September 16 by the totally not corrupt Judge Juan Marchand. Now, I'm not going to start from scratch on this. You all know about the bogus New York indictment case, the hush money case, what would have otherwise been a misdemeanor bumped up to a 34-count felony. And the way they got to a felony was by arguing that the entry into the ledgers, the bookkeeping mistake, was actually intended to conceal a federal crime. What federal crime was that? You need not adjudicate on that, dear jurors, just so long as you come down with a guilty verdict. So they bumped up a misdemeanor that would have been time barred by the statute of limitations, turned it into a 34-count felony bullcrap charge, and then actually convict Donald Trump by a jury of his peers, a lynching mob jury of his peers in New York under that case by the Judge Juan Marchand, whose daughter is president at Authentic HQ, that is a PR firm representing Adam Schiff, Democrat PACs, etc., etc. You all know the story. That's the summary. Trump was convicted by that totally impartial jury under that totally unbiased and not corrupt judge, and then that little thing of the Supreme Court ruling on immunity came down, which caused Judge Juan Marchand to have to possibly reconsider the verdict in that case, possibly vacate the verdict in that case, because that case does touch on presidential immunity, which was now recognized by the Supreme Court, and Donald Trump asked for a postponement of the sentencing as a result of that Supreme Court ruling on immunity, and the judge initially postponed the sentencing, if any, and I'm quoting the judge. It was supposed to occur on September 16, and Team Trump again filed a request to postpone the sentencing in that case, actually to vacate the verdict, but subsidiarily to postpone the sentencing until after the election. And some people were predicting, get ready for Trump to be sentenced to prison on September 16. Andy McCarthy, I'm looking at you, and I said, I predict this is a bad prediction. Andy McCarthy on August 14, 2024, prepare for Trump to be sentenced to prison on September 18. My at Fox News opinion column, Fox News, etc., etc. To which I responded, I predict this is a bad prediction, at Andy McCarthy. Now, in fairness to Andy McCarthy and to steelman his position, perhaps he was not predicting that Trump was going to get sentenced to prison on September 18 or September 16, whatever day it was supposed to be. Maybe he was just saying, get ready, world, for Trump to possibly be sentenced. Whatever. It didn't happen. And the letter that Judge Marchand wrote to justify postponing the sentencing until after the election, it is gold. You know when a judge has to spend a page telling the world how not corrupt he is? That's kind of an indication the judge is corrupt. Supreme Court of the State of New York, Juan M. Marchand, Judge of the Court of Claims. Supreme Court Criminal Term, First Judicial District. Dear Counsel, by letter dated August 14, 2024, defendant requests an adjournment of his sentencing, currently scheduled for September 18, 2024, until after the 2024 presidential election. He argues adjournment is necessary to provide adequate time to, quote, assess and pursue, end quote, appellate options in the event this court denies his pending criminal procedure law, CPL, section 330.30 motion, and to avoid the potential, quote, politically prejudicial, end quote, impact that a public sentencing could have on him and his prospects in the upcoming election. He attempts to bolster his application by repeating a litany of perceived and unsubstantiated grievances from previous filings that do not merit this court's attention and will not be addressed in this decision. The people, by letter dated August 16, 2024, state that they, quote, defer to the court on the appropriate post-trial schedule that allows adequate time to adjudicate defendant's CPL section 330.30 motion, end quote. Nonetheless, the people, quote, to assist the court, end quote, with its determination, identify several reasons why an adjournment would be appropriate. Trump has raised a litany of issues with this judge, but they're so idiotic, so inane that the court need not address them at this particular point in time. Oh, you know, like the fact that the judge's daughter is working for a PR firm that represents Adam Schiff. Another dude from Authentic HQ actually started that White Dudes for Harris campaign. They're raising millions upon millions of dollars off of this prosecution. The judge himself complained to his daughter, who then relayed this information in a podcast back in 2019, how her father hates politicians who use Twitter. Oh yeah, all of these things, they're so irrelevant, so inconsequential, the court need not address them, except spend a paragraph addressing them only to write them off. Methinks the judge doth protesteth too much, a stuck pig squeals, and my goodness, that corrupt Judge Juan Marchand is one stuck judicial pig. Later on in the letter, unfortunately, we are now at a place in time that is fraught with complexities, rendering the requirements of a sentencing hearing, should one be necessary, difficult to execute. Thus, in accordance with certain of the grounds submitted by defendant and the reasons for adjournment provided by the people coupled with the unique time frame this matter currently finds itself in, the decision of the CPL Section 330.30 motion and the imposition of sentence will be adjourned to avoid any appearance, however unwarranted, that the proceeding has been affected by or seeks to affect the approaching presidential election in which the defendant is a candidate. Yup, methinks he doth protesteth his corruption a little bit too much, but in case you were still confused, in case you were still thinking maybe this court really isn't fair or partial, don't worry, this totally partial corrupt court and this totally partial corrupt judge, Juan Marchand, assure you they are fair and partial. The court is a fair, impartial, and apolitical institution. Adjourning decisions on the motion and sentencing, if such is required, should dispel any suggestion that the court will have issued any decision or imposed sentence either to give an advantage to or to create a disadvantage for any political party and or any candidate for any office. Adjournments for sentencing are routinely granted, often several times in any number of other criminal matters pending in this courthouse, particularly when unopposed for reasons ranging from personal circumstances to the scheduling needs of the parties involved. Given the unique facts and circumstances of this case, there is no reason why this defendant should be treated any differently than any other. Holy hell, is Judge Marchand laying it on thick. Oh my goodness, what a concession. This judge has now graciously and impartially adjourned the sentencing, notwithstanding the fact that that entire verdict might need to be vacated as a result of the ruling by the Supreme Court on the immunity issue and the evidence that may be adduced as a result of that immunity issue. This guy is just so gracious and so impartial. He's going to postpone the sentencing. When? Until 2 weeks after the election. But before we get there, the judge is not yet done laying his impartiality on so thick he can cut it with a knife. This adjournment request has now been decided in the same way this court has decided every other issue that has arisen since the origination of this case, applying the facts and the law after carefully considering the issues and respective arguments of the parties to ensure that the integrity of the proceeding is protected, justice is served, and the independence of this judiciary kept firmly intact. Therefore, it is hereby ordered that decision on defendant's CPL Section 330.30 motion to set aside the jury verdict and to dismiss the indictment will be handed down off calendar on November 12, 2024, and it is further ordered that sentencing on this matter, if necessary, is adjourned to November 26, 2024 at 10 a.m., and it is further ordered that defendant's motion to preclude the people from filing a pre-sentence memorandum is denied. The people's submission, if any, will be filed with the court under seal pursuant to CPL Section 390.50, paragraph 1. The above constitutes the decision and order of this court. The totally impartial, totally not corrupt, totally honorable Judge Juan M. Marchand. I added all those words because they do not exist. I am sticking with my initial prediction, or at least one of my initial predictions, that the judge is going to be forced to vacate this conviction. There is no way this verdict can stand, given the immunity ruling by the Supreme Court, which is why the judge repeatedly adds the words, if necessary, when talking about any sentence that he is going to render at a later date. It is simply judicially unavoidable that the judge vacates this verdict, and I predict he's going to blame it all on the Supreme Court's ruling and say, look, I would have sentenced Trump to a 2 years in jail, whatever, but I simply can't now because of the Supreme Court ruling on immunity, not just on the immunity issue, but on the evidence issue as well. And but for those dastardly scoundrels at the Supreme Court, Trump would be in jail by now, but I am forced to vacate this verdict. But what happens as a result of all of this? They get to call Trump a convicted felon for the next 2 months until after the election. What a coincidence that is from this ever impartial, totally fair, and totally not corrupt Judge Juan Marchand for the next 2 months, even though he hasn't been sentenced yet, which from what I understand under New York law is a requisite in order to referring to Donald Trump as a convicted felon. They now get to run with the headlines, convicted felon, convicted felon, convicted felon, until after the election, whereas this guy is inevitably going to vacate that verdict. But if he were to do it now, it would hand Trump the political victory that this totally impartial judge cannot hand to Trump. Oh my goodness, and most importantly, if you are not yet subscribed, take 5 seconds to hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications so that when I put out a new video, you get notified. Drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm. Share my stuff with someone who you think would like it, but share it with someone who you know would not. Now, my conclusion, Judge Juan Marchand is corrupt as the day is long. When you have to dedicate the better part of a 4-page letter on postponing sentencing to the fact that you are so impartial, so not corrupt, that means you are partial and you are corrupt. Andy McCarthy, your prediction was terrible. You should have known it at the time. My prediction thus far has turned out to be more accurate. The sentencing has been postponed yet again, and I am predicting that the entire verdict is going to get vacated, and the judge is not going to like doing it, but he's got a great scapegoat in those far-right MAGA extremists. extremists on the Supreme Court. I should put extremists in quote because they're not. They're just judges doing their job. Now, there is a barbecue going and a steak with my name on it. I'll show you a picture of that so you can see the beautiful tomahawk steak coming from Easy Meats on Glades. Hashtag not an ad. That's Easy Meats on Glades, the best Brazilian meat shop you could possibly imagine. So with that said, stay healthy, stay sane, get out there, exercise, eat healthy, vitamin D, talk to people in real life, and now you know your vlog. Peace out, peeps. Booyah!